Here's a demonstration of a provisional cast-on using waste yarn, which should be cotton. It should be smooth and it should be firm, not cotton with elastic in it. You'll also need a crochet hook and one of the knitting needles that you're going to be using for the project, and later some scissors. So the first step is to get the yarn onto the crochet hook, and we'll do that by tying a slip knot. I let the yarn tail dangle over the tops of my fingers, and using 2 fingers I wrap that tail around again, and it's just dangling there to the back. With the crochet hook, I go into the loop that's around my fingers and I snag the tail so that I can bring it up through the loop. And you tighten it by pulling on both ends and then later just the tail so that you can snug it up to the hook. And don't snug it up too tight because you need some space here so that you can pull the yarn and the head of the crochet hook through. And now the next thing we're going to do is chain. You can also just kind of practice chaining until you feel very comfortable with it. That's the only thing we're going to be doing, but later we're going to chain over the crochet hook, or excuse me, over the knitting needle. But first we're just going to chain a few onto the crochet hook so there's a little bit of a tail. And the way you do that is this slip knot that you just tied, grasp that with a couple fingers and pull away from the hook. You want some space there between the hook and the last stitch. And now lay your yarn's going to be held in your left hand, which will be a bit of a strange thing for people who normally knit with the yarn in the right hand, but it can be done, trust me. So lay your hook on top of that yarn that you're tensioning in your left hand, and then go around it so that you can snag the yarn with the head of the hook. And now you're going to pull that snagged yarn through the loop that's already on your hook. And that's 1 chained. And keep that downward pressure going. Lay the hook down, wrap around to snag the yarn. And as you pull through, it's helpful to swivel the hook so that it's pointing toward your thumb as you go through that loop. It'll make the motion easier. Hook goes down on top of the yarn, underneath, and snags it, and swivels and pulls it through. So down on top, swivel and snag through. And do that. You can just chain a bunch and take it out again later. Do it until you feel comfortable with the motion. And it doesn't have to look pretty or even at all. You just need to get some of those chains on there. And when you feel ready, you want to pick up your knitting needle. And the crochet hook will be to the right of the knitting needle, and the working yarn, the yarn that you're tensioning, will be underneath the knitting needle. And you want to somehow hold on to this chain that you've made and the knitting needle and the yarn all in your left hand. And now you're going to do the same motion, but you're going to be taking your crochet hook over the knitting needle in order to snag the yarn, and then again pull it through that loop that is on your crochet hook. In order to make another stitch, you have to bring the working yarn behind the knitting needle, and then again, same motion, snag your yarn and pull through a loop. Yarn goes behind the knitting needle, snag it, and pull it through. And once you have as many stitches on your needle as the pattern asks for, you can dispense with the needle. You can just kind of let it hang there. It'll be attached because it's got all those stitches on it. And now, instead of taking the yarn to the back, you'll leave the yarn in the front and chain a few more to finish it off. Whoops. Keep that downward pressure. It makes it so much easier to get your hook through the loop. And when you've chained as many as you want, pull the loop kind of big, your crochet hook can come out, snip your yarn, and then pull the tail through. So that's secure. It's not going to come out until you want it to come out. And when you do want it to come out, this side is the one that you'll cut, and that will just unzip all these stitches. Another thing to remember is if your provisional cast-on doesn't look neat and orderly, it's okay. This is all yarn that's going to be cut and removed from the project. It doesn't have to look perfect.